Hi, welcome to Body Image Coach. My name's Jane Richardson, and I am a volunteer and host of a series of talks we're going to do with Olivia Bowden, who is a coach, and Jennie Penkul, who is a therapist. We are a UK-based social enterprise who works with young people on body image issues. So we're going to talk in this series about body image issues, body dysmorphia, eating disorders, with the aim of talking over some of the main concerns and trying to help young people. So today we're going to start off by talking about our own experiences of body image issues. So Olivia, would you like to introduce yourself a bit in more detail and kick off about what's brought you here?
Yeah, thank you, Jen. So basically, I am a body image coach. I work with teenagers that have eating disorders and body dysmorphic disorder. What's brought me to do this kind of work is that I struggled with body dysmorphic disorder, BDD, from a very young age. And it started when I was about 4, actually. And I remember thinking, like, I was running up a hill in the park, and I remember looking at my right knee and thinking that looks really weird as it is, and that I shouldn't be showing it to anybody and I need to hide it. That was my first memory, and it kind of just escalated from there. So by the time I was a teenager, I hated pretty much every part of my body. And then obviously, when I went through puberty and I got these big boobs and it was just it just manifested itself from there. And it's been it became a very dark journey where I struggled with relationships. I just struggled with everything, every aspect of it. I spent a lot of time, looking at myself in the mirror in disbelief and hiding body parts and shaming myself, and it just lasted for a really long time until I did get help. So yeah, that was pretty much how it started.
And how did you first know that you needed to get help then? What was your kind of...
I think, yeah, I didn't realize I needed help until it got to the stage where every time I looked at my hands, I was having a panic attack because I felt like my hands were old, like an old lady's hands. And every time I looked at them, I was literally having a panic attack. And I thought that in order to stop the panic attacks, I need to chop off my hands.
Wow.
And I had thoughts of actually how it would work. What would I do without my hands? Would I be able to cope without having hands? I went down that whole thought process of, when I look at my hands now, they're just normal hands, and I love them.
Yeah, yeah.
um, but at the time, it become really dark, and I just wanted to stop having panic attacks. So I ended up going to my GP and said, I'm thinking about chopping off my hands because every time I look at them, I'm having a panic attack. And that's when I was diagnosed with BDD. And that's when I realized I'm not the only person that has BDD. There's millions of other people that have it as well.
And in a way, was that a kind of relief getting a diagnosis, as it were, or...
Yeah, it was. I mean, I don't like to put titles on myself, but sometimes when you are diagnosed with something, it really gives you an understanding of, well, for a start, you're not on your own. There's a lot of the rest of the population that are going through the same thing. Also, studies have been backed up to show you how to get help from it. And there's different theories on it. So it's actually good to do a little bit of research and see if it does fit. And it did fit. And that's when I became really interested in, I'm already interested in the mind because of, the path that I lead. But yeah, it was interesting to see how my mind was working. It was a bit of a light bulb moment, actually, being diagnosed.
Oh, good. So, Jennie, you come from a different perspective. You're a therapist, but you also have supported somebody, a loved one, who's had body dysmorphic disorder. Can you talk a bit about your experiences and how that influences the work that you do?
Yes, Jane, thanks. The first thing I think I should say is that I had body image issues myself as a teenager. I didn't really realise that I had at the time, but I definitely had what I would say a bit of a dance with body dysmorphia for a while, and I was a compulsive skin picker, and I also heavily got involved with trying to be very much more tanned than I naturally would be. I was very fortunate that I actually grew out of that and sort of made a recovery. But yes, I had an anxious child, and I'd always wanted to become a therapist. So I got into training to be a therapist when my children were little. And my son developed body dysmorphia in his teens. In fact, he probably had it from much younger, but it really manifests when, he was, I guess, going through puberty. I don't know what else you want to know.
So how did that kind of, how was that for you? How did it feel to watch your son go through that? That's.
I think it's an indescribable experience. That unless you've walked that path, it's very difficult to explain. It was an incredibly long and painful journey, with very little information and insight, despite the fact that I was a therapist by the time he was diagnosed. My training had given me very little preparation for the practicalities that are faced by people who have body dysmorphia. So we would have touched on anxiety, eating disorders, maybe OCD. But in terms of the real life experience of supporting somebody who has a very serious problem, I didn't have that.
Yeah, and I suppose that was probably quite isolating then.
Extremely.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the experiences that people have who support family members, loved ones who have an eating disorder or BDD is that they become socially isolated and they lose friends because friends don't understand the extent of the demands that are put upon you. So you become a really bad friend. You make plans to go and see your friends, and then you have to cancel at the last minute.
Yeah, it's really hard for people to understand, isn't it, when you're not going through it yourself? Because from the outside looking in, people, one of the things that people would say very rarely did I express how I really felt, but then some people would say, there's nothing wrong with you, like, as if it is all in the mind, but it's what you are saying to yourself, and it manifests into something, doesn't it, that you can't really explain to other people, can you?
No, you can't.
And does it, because I think with things like to do with body image, traditionally that's been thought of as girls experiencing that. So your son was experiencing, did that present any particular challenges?
Actually, I don't think there's any, for us, there wouldn't have been any difference whether it was my daughter or my son.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So when you're thinking about your healing journey, Olivia, what was the hardest part of that, do you think, for you?
Oh, yeah, definitely opening a can of worms, so to speak. So I don't think I realized that when I did start the journey, that it was going to be difficult. I just thought that, oh, okay, I've been diagnosed. This is the support that I need to get, and then I'm going to heal. But it's not as simple as that. And obviously, everybody's healing looks different. But if you think of, for myself, it was from the age of 4, it was years and years of manifested self-hatred, that I then had to turn inside out to become self-acceptance. And in order to get to that place where you do accept yourself physically, it takes a lot of inner work, and it's actually a lifelong accomplishment. It doesn't stop when you are healed, it stops when you die. And I've realized that now, and it's very easy for me to slip back into that self-hatred, but I'm aware of it now as much as possible, and then I don't allow myself to go down that path. I could, but I don't.
And Jennie, what do you think was the hardest part of that healing journey for you and your son?
Such a complex question.
Maybe it needs a complex answer. What about complex answer?
How long have you got?
Were there any specific things, Jennie, that you found harder than others, or it was just all?
We will be talking about this in future. There are very difficult times, and with body dysmorphia, there can be very little respite. Right. And very little guidance. Extremely hard to find support from people who truly understand it, truly understand what's going on. That was probably the biggest challenge, in that I was constantly reaching out and trying to find somebody who understood the dynamics of what was happening. And that was difficult, because I was encouraging my son to go to therapy, and then it would transpire that the therapist really didn't necessarily understand. And so that was felt like I was raising my hopes and his, and then having those dashed. And that was really difficult.
Yeah. It sounds as though it would have felt like you were perhaps doing more damage than help sometimes.
Certainly at times, yes.
Yeah, that's difficult, isn't it? So anybody watching, what advice do you have if they are experiencing themselves some issues with their body image, or they're noticing something in a loved one that they just don't think is quite right? What would you advise them to do at the moment?
Do you want to go, Jennie, or do you want me to?
You go as you started.
Okay. I would say you're definitely not alone. There's millions of people going through the same or similar difficulties right now at this very red hot minute. And there is healing that, you can heal from this. Everybody's healing journey looks different, but we can help you through your healing journey. And I would just say that, like I say, everyone's healing journey is different, and there is a part of you that wants to heal. So it's just tapping into that part of you that wants to heal and working with that, which is what we do. And it is possible.
Jennie, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, from the point of view of a parent, which is where body dysmorphia is normally going to be identified, because one of the features of body dysmorphia is that it's not and recognised by the person who's experiencing it. It takes a while, and sometimes a long while, before the person realises that the distress they're experiencing is body dysmorphia. So to some extent, the onus is on loved ones to, wherever possible, to be the first people to recognise and offer support. So I think the first thing I would do, I'd be watchful of my child or young teenagers' behaviours. I would be looking out for things that might be causing them distress and trauma. And so as a real first point is to find out, is there trauma? Is it current? Has there been trauma? And what can I do about that? I'll start to get lots of information about body dysmorphia. There are some really good resources out there. And I know that we'll be saying more about this in other sessions. So I think educate yourself is the first step, and don't shame or blame at all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both for sharing. And as you've alluded to, Jennie, we will be doing more of these. So tune in next week when we'll have another topic. But in the meantime, you can subscribe to this channel, like this channel, and also visit our website, bodyimagecoach.co.uk. And we do have Instagram and Facebook pages. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having us.